What is up, guys? Steve here with Scotch and Things. Hey, this is going to be another Knife Thoughts with Scotch and Things, episode 3. Sorry, didn't mean to bring them that close together. Not that it matters. But I was thinking the other day, and it's just funny, then something happened this weekend. So, what happened? I just want to know, when was the disconnect, right? Think back to your fathers, your grandfathers, everyone carried a knife back in the day, right? And when did that stop? Imagine going back into like the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Almost, I would say, most men carried a knife. It was just something you had, right? It's just the way it was. There was no looking down on it, right? Knives were used for, I think back to like my grandpa, and seeing him use his hunting knife all the time, skinning rabbits and stuff like that. But then he always had a slip joint in his pocket. And years and years ago, I was at a business meeting when everyone was in suits, and we needed to put, anyway, no one had our suit pockets, the pockets stitched together, and we're like, shit, we got to put these name tags in there. And there was an older gentleman that had a little slip joint on him, and we were able to cut the stitching. This was probably 15 years ago. And he was from a different generation. Like nowadays, yeah, I always have a knife on me. In any situation. Doesn't matter if I don't have to wear a suit anymore, but I was just wondering when that stopped. And you look at us now, someone watching this video, right? There's days I carry 2 or 3 knives, just for fun. My main carry knife, the heater, is what I got on me today. But I think we're kind of the exception to the rule. If you're watching this channel, we've got multiple knives, right? We're collectors, we're knife enthusiasts. And then we're this tiny little speck. But then, yeah, there is a broader spectrum of people out there carrying knives. You see, if you're someone like us, you're always looking at someone's pocket and you see a pocket clip, and yeah, they might not be the kind of knives we carry. They might have been something they got at a gas station or at Walmart or whatever. But there's us with lots of knives, and we're constantly switching them out. And then there's another spectrum of guys that still have knives on them. But then I think there's a greater majority of someone who doesn't have a knife. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying men. When did men quit? Because predominantly it was men. And I know men and women carry knives now. And more women should carry knives. I try and get my wife to put a knife in her purse all the time, and she won't. I don't need that. That's what you're for. So when I say predominantly men carried, say, slip joints or lockbacks back in the day. And when I say back in the day, think of the 50s, 60s, when did that quit becoming a thing, right? Where less and less men and women quit carrying their knives. Where it would have been the norm, and it wouldn't have been a big deal if you needed a knife, someone had a knife in their pocket. Where in like today's society, if you were to bring out a knife in certain situations, people think you're a crazy person. So I was just wondering, when do you guys think that shift started, and what was why do you think less and less people quit carrying just even a simple slip joint, which back in the day, probably 98% of the people had a slip joint in their pocket, right? A lockback in their pocket. I don't know. I was just kind of curious. I was just thinking about that the other day, of when did that happen and why did it happen? And then it got me thinking, this, I was kind of thinking about this, and then it was funny. So Saturday, we worked for a little while, and then Saturday evening, we had some friends. They came out, and we went out to dinner, and I've known him for 29 years. I've known his wife since they got married. I was the best man in his wedding. But she's on the very liberal side. And we can go back. We've debated politics since like 2004, 2002. Was it 2002? When was the last one? When was Bush? And I don't know, whatever year it was. Maybe it was 2002, 2004. Going back to way back then, we would debate politics. And it's not one of those things, and I wish it could be more like that. This isn't a political talk in the country. But, like, we're still friends. He's still one of my best friends in the world, and you can debate and have differing opinions and still be friends. But anyway, we were out to dinner, and I don't know what, Andrea said something about Stephen has knives or something like that. And she looked at me, and she goes, "Why do you need to carry a knife?" And I said, "I use a knife every day at work." I said, "Every day at work, I use a knife multiple times." And I said, and her husband was like, "I like knives." He goes, "I've loved knives since I was a kid." And she kind of looked at him, and I said, "For around home, do I use them as often?" I said, "No." I said, "But they're always handy." I said, "It is a tool." I said, "I don't carry it as a defensive weapon. I carry it as a tool." I said, "How many times, I said, look at kids' toys nowadays." And he was like, and then we start going back and forth comparing, like, oh my God, what a nightmare it is to unpackage a child's toy now. There's 1,000 zip ties or rubber, if they get a doll, maybe you guys, dads with daughters would know this. There's like 1,000 rubber bands around their neck, their wrists, their ankles, everywhere. And it's just easy with a knife, pop, pop, pop. And he's like, I use, he goes, and she goes, "When do you use a knife?" And he's like, "I'm always going to get my Milwaukee Fastback." And then he tells a story, like when he was a kid, his dad was putting up a fence, and a chain link fence, and there was little metal straps and there was a bunch left over. I don't know, I can't remember what the straps, the ones that weave in it, I don't know, whatever left over. And he said he had a handful of those that he was sharpening on rocks and stuff and getting them ground down. And he goes, basically, I made prison shivs. But that was what boys did. And it got me thinking, like, oh man, that's a real bummer. And he was like, I'm constantly, and for some reason, like, one of his youngest daughters into him cutting cardboard strips for her now, and he's always using them all, which the Milwaukee Fastback is probably excellent for just cutting cardboard all the time. But so and you'll see this when it comes. So the minute they left, I was scouring the internet for the perfect knife, because when he was there, I was like, because when we came back to our house and had some drinks, and I was thinking, what knife in my collection can I give him? And he likes knives, but he hasn't been around a knife other than the Milwaukee Fastback forever. So I was like, oh man, I was going to toss him a Chris Reeve, because I knew it would last him his entire life and he would enjoy it. But we're going to start small. I thought, okay, it was like, I thought back to like my brother-in-law at Smoky Mountain Knife Works and seeing all the different locks and kind of being overwhelmed. And I was looking at my knives. I snuck into my closet real quick, like, what can I give him? What will be easy for him? And then he saw me pull out an OTF later that night, and I used it to open a bottle of Scotch. And he was just kind of like, oh, don't worry, we'll educate you. So I think I found the perfect starter knife for him, and I'll explain more when I get it, and I'll do an unboxing, because I bought myself one too. But the price was fantastic. So I got some more stupid knife purchases coming this week that were on a whim. What an idiot. I've got some customs that are all kind of getting done or getting ready to be, and I'm excited about those. They've been on order for a while. But yeah, I still got to get some. I still got a like probably 10, 15 knives that I need to sell. So if there's something you guys want, hit me up. I just haven't had time to make a video yet. But I just thought it was this weird thought I had of why are knives kind of, for some people, this kind of voodoo topic, what am I trying to think of? just this weird, kind of where people think of them as weapons nowadays, to where, say, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was the norm. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. When do you think that switch occurred? And I think I handled the situation with my buddy and his wife pretty well, because we get along great, don't get me wrong. But she was just kind of like, and she knows I have a knife all the time on me. I mean, God, we've known each other for how long? And we see the pocket clips and whatnot. And I said, part of it's a fidget toy around home. And Andrea's like, oh my God, yes, he's always messing with them. I said, part of it's I explained to her, I said, I like mechanical things. I like that, something that is tactile, that I can touch, feel, and then has, an order of operation to it. I think she got that. I said, they're not, some people probably do, but they're not weapons for the most part. Mine are tools. I use them as a tool. So, yeah, I'm gonna give my dealer, one of my dealers just passed me on the road, so I'm gonna give him a call real quick. So, yeah, I just thought it was funny. It was a interesting thing that was kind of kicking around in my head, to then this, to where, and what's funny is he's a very mechanical person. Like back in the day, we're talking years and years, and 20 years ago, maybe 15, he had a car, and he'd spent so much money on it when he was young, and didn't have much money, because no one did back then, and it kept breaking, and we were living up in the Twin Cities, and he was always taking it to like Meineke, and I was like, how much was it this time? Jesus. And he got really good. Finally, he said, screw it, and got manuals and a bunch of tools, and he just learned he just taught himself. So he's very capable, and he's rebuilt, he was into Subarus for a while, rebuilt an older WRX before it was the I'm not really up to speed on Subarus, but what was the Subaru that was kind of a WRX, but before the WRX, really? The RF, I can't remember, but totally, coilovers, just totally rebuilt it from the ground up. Fixed run, he dove in head first, same thing with their house. They moved back to Nebraska, and he literally has just torn the house apart, redoing everything. So he's very mechanically inclined, and I think maybe this is my way to get someone else into the knife hobby, right? Start them small, start them with something simple that's both useful and in two ways. You'll see when I get it. I'm excited for it to show up, and I'm excited because his birthday is in November, and we're going to get together. So I'll get him a bottle of Scotch and this knife. And yeah, it was cool. It was cool. It'll be cool to give him this, and even if he never gets another knife, this will be very useful. But he was like, I'm always cutting apples for their daughters and stuff, and he's like, and she goes, what knife? He goes, if I had a pocket knife, it would be so much easier. He's kind of like playing his case to her, like my life would just be better if I had a pocket knife that I could cut apples with for his little girls. So I just found that hilarious as shit. So yep, I got on the internet and we're gonna start them small and see how that goes, so that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching. This was kind of a long one, but really more on the topic of, when do you think, I'm really curious when that switch occurred and why it occurred. Was it in the 70s, 80s maybe? I don't know. And it wasn't everybody. I work around farmers, and I'm around, I'm in a rural area where they're more predominant, right? But it wasn't that way when we lived in a bigger city. I know that it was very odd. I can remember before I started doing what I was doing, I pulled a pocket knife out of my pocket, and someone looked at me like I was a crazy person. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.